So I started thinking about something that I haven't really seen anyone express as a narcissist. And I think, I don't know, a lot of you who do have MPD as well could perhaps like relate to the things that I'm about to say. Because, okay, you clicked on the title of this video. It says, why are narcissists narcissistic? And the approach that I'm going to take here is not necessarily like this super deep, like psychological, oh, was I wired to be this way, blah, 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 this and this and that, or not even the nurture aspect, which I don't blame anyone for, because I guess, yeah, that's what people do. That if they notice patterns for like a particular thing, we tend to like categorize it and like whatnot. And perhaps you could say that within a lot of people that are, NPD, you see reoccurring things in terms of like childhood themes and like whatnot for like a lot of the things that like we've been going through. So yeah, you can see a lot of that online. So if you want to get that, then like, okay, you know go away and and find that sort of thing. I actually wanted to talk about, I guess, why it outwardly presents like narcissistically, or at least like what I want to encapsulate is, I guess, like what is going through at least my particular thought process. I don't want to speak for like anybody else in particular. I mean, if you understand what I'm talking about, then like, okay, cool. But I'm not a licensed professional or like anything like that. So take it, like what I said, as like, my perspective, my point of view. But okay, if you want to look at my internal framework, when at the very least not extremely wearing this like mask of like arrogance or like whatever, like what I've said a lot of times, there is nothing within me. It's just like a blank, empty, and hollow shell. So I think whenever I live my life that way, 24/7, and it like never actually goes away, the only time I forget about it is when, yes, I'm in these like particular moods where, I guess, if I slip on a mask that's not even covering or like hiding anything, because I think a lot of people get the misconception that, oh, because everybody naturally thinks that like they have some sort of like identity or something, like we're trying to be manipulative or this or that. But like, truth be told, I'm not doing that. I don't speak for anybody else. I don't see it as like outside the realm of like possibility that like perhaps like, okay, certain people, narcissists or not, will manipulate you. I always have that thought at the back of my mind anyway, so I don't necessarily blame anybody for like thinking that. But like, when I speak of like wearing a mask, I truly engulf myself in that mask. Like, it feels really good if it's like a mask of like superiority and like, arrogance and like whatnot. But then again, even my negative emotions don't really feel valid, because when I experience all these things in terms of like, let's say, self-esteem, and whether or not I actually look at myself as like somebody or a person or like some sort of like an I, sure, that can exist in like short little moments when I'm like wearing those masks. Arrogance or complete like hopelessness or like whatever. But then again, it all fades away and it all goes to black. So when you see within yourself that like there's nothing there, and you're in a world where, I guess, identity is everything to a whole lot of like people, then it's kind of strange and like ironic, because I can imagine somebody calling somebody narcissistic like, oh, you're so full of yourself. But like, if you're an actual, like diagnosed like NPD sort of like person, you're full of nothing. I'm full of nothing. So yeah, it's like a weird paradoxical, like contradictory like existence that like I'm going through, because despite not knowing who I am, a lot of times I can be incredibly focused on it. So I think that's what naturally presents to a lot of people as like, oh, my narcissism or my arrogance, or like, oh, me being full of myself, or like whatever, in like certain times. Because at least when I go through my life, when I hold on to like a mask and I finally perhaps start to think, oh, this is me, this is the person that I stand for, this is the I, quote unquote. But like, truth be told, it never, happens. Kind of like what I said, it just like, it all fades away. My internal monologue is kind of strange, because I feel like even when I think about things, I don't necessarily even address myself. Like, I think about it in terms of like, okay, how am I going to show myself to somebody, or what do I think I should be doing in terms of like my presentation to like anybody else. So it's like I ask a series of questions, or I give myself like a specific set of like instructions that I think like makes sense perhaps. And I think I've said it before in like another video, I think. I don't remember, but like okay, about how like it feels like it's like when you're playing a video game and you're supposed to like select like like the best dialogue. I'm trying to make up those like options in my mind, and it's like my internal monologue is more like, okay, this makes sense, or this is who you're supposed to be, this is how you should present yourself, yada yada yada, or like whatever. So you know nothing ever like retains, nothing is like like ever truly there. And yeah, it's like, see, I'm trying to explain, I guess, like yeah, like why this is the way it is. And I guess like that's the only way I can like sort of put it, because like even though I'm saying these things, even though I feel like okay, I've learned a better way to like articulate myself, quote unquote, it's just like it's not real, because like despite that, I don't even think I can like escape it. Like even if you perhaps tell me that like, oh, you've gathered a lot of like self-awareness, so then you can come closer to like, let's say, like finding the real you. But like no, I can't. Because the thing that's like ironic, and I think like the thing that like a lot of people don't understand, is like you can't find something that doesn't actually you know exist. Like if it's not there, then what are you chasing? An idea, right? Just like a fantasy of something. So I think yes, my internal like monologue like really works that way, at least in terms of like my self-esteem, or yeah, how I see myself as like a human being. Like I'm chasing an idea. And I guess because you live in society, you have to do this constantly. I mean, it seems like most people are more comfortable with like who they are in terms of like their like identity and stuff, but it's like if you're a cluster B sort of like person, tell me if a lot of you agree. It's like you're yeah, because of these like feelings of like emptiness and like whatnot, you're chasing an idea of who you're supposed to be. But it's kind of weird, because like I don't think while we're doing that, we don't even realize that like okay, because like I don't know how we, or I'm gonna focus more on me, like how I'm supposed to like decode myself from that. Because with an identity, there are less questions, or at least like from how I perceive other people that don't appear to be cluster B. They just know who they are, or they just like see who they are. So it's like it's less about them asking, okay, who am I? It's more like they themselves pushing themselves to like a reaction. But the thing is, that doesn't happen to me. Or even if it does, like I don't get it, because maybe it's just patterns that I've been gathering, and I think, oh, maybe this makes sense. It's like the perfect sort of like reaction or something. So maybe like I've trained, or let's say like coded myself into being like, oh, you always pick this option. Or like when you play the video game, this is the correct dialogue option for this character when you're talking to this character. So it's like you have to press this, otherwise everything fucks up, or like something like that. So yeah, it's really like I don't know. It's like I don't know, like it's like it's super hilarious to me actually, that with trying to discover like I don't know, this like self identity, it really looks like you're, I don't know, on the outside maybe like extremely there, extremely this, extremely that. Because yeah, that phrase is just hilarious to me. Like when you say that somebody's like, oh, so full of themselves, but it's like it's funny because that whole being full of ourselves hypothetically as like narcissists are like built on a house of cards, built on like a super weak sort of like foundation. So yeah, like back again to like what I'm saying, like it's funny because a lot of us don't know who we are. I don't know who I am, and in a strange like paradoxical way, that I don't know, pushes you into a direction where it's like, well, you know what? fuck this. This is who I am. Take a full force of it. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and it's like, regardless of whether it comes across as like good or bad to like other people or something, it's like they retain those things about, your character or like your persona. But when you hold on to those things about me, like however I presented myself, like to you, it never retained like for myself. So even in a weird way, I don't feel like I'm the same person whenever I'm talking to like a lot of people, even within like that like same sort of like person, because like I've noticed that like going throughout my life, I have a better idea of what I think I'm supposed to be if you tell me the reputation you have of me, like towards me. And I'm sure that like applies to like everybody, but I guess like not everybody is consciously always thinking about, I guess, like their presentation, how they look, or like something like that, because like they're just being like in the sense of like an identity or like whatever. So when I talk to people, I'm always using the frame of reference that like they understand. And I guess like whatever that is, however they like feel about me, the only way I know how to act is like, okay, how can I use that perception in a way that like, I don't know, smoothly goes, into this like transition of like a conversation. Or even if I'm like hypothetically like being like spiteful, like what things do I know really irritate or like bother this person, and if they're going to be like an enemy towards me, then like, okay, I have to fire back 10 times hard. And it's weird because even in those moments where like hypothetically, okay, if my ego is bruised and then I come after somebody and I like attack them or like whatever, I know later on when I no longer have those like strong feelings of like hate and like resentment, like I won't even care anymore. And maybe perhaps that person that I like hurt because I said something that, was really like, I don't know, let's say cruel, because I thought it was like justified at the time. It's like I don't even know how to react to that person that like that I was. Like I acknowledge that that's how I, showed myself to you, let's say, in that moment, if I ever say anything that's like, I don't know, rude, disrespectful, or like whatever, but at least like in my natural state, if it's actually there, I have no reaction to it, because it's just, it comes back to nothing. It comes back to nothing. So I guess to like wrap up everything that like I've been trying to say, a lot of narcissists, or at least like I have an idea that like I'm extremely self-absorbed because I have no clue, no fucking idea who I am at all.